Alrighty, let's go. So this is kind of a part two. We're gonna dive into. I'm gonna talk about this at the end. I totally forgot. Okay, this is a part two of what we're doing here. Okay, so selling in your conversations, part two. But this time, instead of going deeper into what it means to sell, I want to go in deeper in starting the conversations. How that how we do that, what that looks like, and be able to answer any questions that maybe you guys have. So let's dive in. Okay, so does anybody, as we do this, I was going to do it before I recorded, but it's all good. We'll just do it right now. Does anybody have a piece of content or conversation that they want to review? Feel free to just unmute yourself and say, I do, or whatever. It's a conversation or a piece of content that they want to review. And just so everyone starts to get the flow of these calls, that is what I want to start to incorporate at the beginning of these calls so that we can get hands-on, like real time review. And the two reasons why is because of all the feedback that I got from our check-in calls. This was like the number one thing that we were talking about, and what better way than to learn than to actually do it with you, whether it's you that's bringing the example or somebody else, and we can learn from whatever we're talking about. But also because I'm a part of that accountability group with Bob's thing, and we do this every week. And every time we do it, I did it last week with a piece of content of my own, and they reviewed it, and it was not only powerful for me because I got to see a new lens, I got to see a new perspective of how they would have approached it and how they would have seen it, but I also got to receive feedback from them saying, wow, that was like really inspiring, and because I shared that, it actually inspired them to go start creating a reel as well, because a lot of them hadn't created reels in a long time, or they were a little afraid to create a reel. And so by seeing my reel, just like just by stepping up and saying, hey, I'll share mine, because I did want to get some feedback, it inspired them to then go out and like actually make a piece of content, actually feel comfortable enough to step up and like share their example. And so the environment that it creates, the openness and this kind of the safe space that it creates, really does a lot of good things. So does anybody have anything at all? Literally could be anything. There's no judgment. It's not about this is right or wrong. Does anybody have anything?
So I have a piece of content. I haven't laid it out, but one of like I wanted to do a carousel. Usually when I do a carousel, I first write it out on Twitter, but I see like people get super creative and use like other apps or like other fonts and stuff like that. Um, is there like something you use when I guess doing carousels, or you just use Twitter to like first write it out?
Okay, so this is more of a technical question. Yeah, so it really is just up to you. I've seen a lot of different people do different things. Sometimes I'll pull, like in the past, I've pulled from what I wrote on Twitter, and I'll screenshot it and I'll crop it and then I'll put it in as my carousel. This past one that I did, I literally just went to my notes tab and took a screenshot of those like little pics and then put them up. So it really just like there's no one set way. Like this is the technical side of it. It's kind of like trading. There's no one way that you can do it. It's find a strategy that you can stay consistent with and that's sustainable. And maybe over time you adjust and review and do something that is more aligned with the message that you want to put out or the look that you want to have.
Yeah, I just don't have it written out yet. Um, but it was gonna be along the lines like we have residual bills, why don't we have residual income? And then I still need to write it out, but basically create a carousel um of well, yeah, just like the mindset of how we make money, basically. I don't know.
Mhm.
I still need to lay it out, but that was gonna be the gist of it. I next time I'll definitely come with it ready and sure.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, all good. I appreciate you just even sharing that. I would definitely say with your piece of content, love to obviously we're all gonna see when you post it. And this is actually a good segue into the call because I'm gonna talk about content a little bit today. And one thing that I would say, just based on what I've been learning and seeing from a lot of Bob's training and just what it means to you know, be a transformational leader in all areas, when you go to make these posts, this is great because I'm literally about to talk about this. When you go to make your post, I would challenge you to share something in there about your story. Because a lot of times, and I'm guilty of this too, is we make posts, and it's not bad that we do this. It gets jumbled up with everybody else's posts that talk about the same thing. Everything is so generic. Everything is like, money is a topic, health is a topic, and so on and so forth. But when you can bring your own experience or, originality through your story or a problem that you've gone through into the post that you're creating, one, you're going to separate yourself from so many other people who are just copying what everybody else is doing, posting, super generic, you know, posts and things like that. And so basically, I'm just encouraging you to throw a little bit of your story and experience in there, or maybe a lesson or two that you've gone through that somebody else on the other side, that person that you are talking to specifically, can relate to. And of course, I would make it related to the main problem and maybe an effect of that main problem in there. Does that make sense, Al? I know that was a lot, but I just wanted to give you some perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Alrighty, y'all. So let's go ahead and get started. Marin said, I like to screenshot what I create on my stories, or Canva has created things too. Yeah, Canva's great. Canva's great as well. Cool. Alrighty. So let's go ahead and start. So want to kind of hear from you guys. What do you think the purpose of putting out content is? Just type it in the chat. What do you think the purpose of putting out content is? Okay. Marin says relatability. Alex says to pique interest. Marin says connection. Mason says to document your story so far. Alex says relatability. Awesome. Awesome. Okay, cool. So I love where your guys' heads at. So the way that Bob wrote it out is the purpose of creating content. All those are great answers, and it does tie into this. But look at content creation. The purpose of putting out content is to, number one, create engagement. Okay. And number two is to start conversations. Okay. That is the purpose. So the reason why I'm going to put out this content is because I want to create some sort of engagement and I want to be able to start conversations. So your content, look at it like this, your content should lead to eventual starting conversations. That's what the purpose of content is. So I know a lot of questions have been, well, how do I start conversations now? Or, where do I find people? And yes, we can continue. And I know I've taught this for a very long time, just from what I was learning. But a lot of the statistics and what Bob has been teaching, and Bob is just who I'm learning from. He is a very transformational. I think you guys all know this, but the reason why I'm learning from Bob is because he has such a transformational approach. And a lot of other people, especially in our space of network marketing, they have a very transactional approach. And if you want to stand out, if you want to separate yourselves, not just in 2023, but in general, and actually understand how to sell, what that looks like, what that sounds like, what that feels like, you do need to start to do things differently. And so putting out content no longer means because that's what people would do, is they would try to sell based on their content. They would try to, get you to take a look at something or promote something or share. They would only put out content just to share what they wanted to say next about, promotion or incentive that was going on, or like whatever. You guys kind of get what I'm trying to say here. But the whole purpose of putting out content, and this is why this can become an infinite game, is because your content is supposed to create engagement from the right, the right people. Obviously, you're going to get other people as well, but from the right people, the people that you can help, and to start those conversations. So I want you to start to really get your mind wrapped around what we're doing here with that, because this is going to help you actually have the right conversations with the right people. And as we go through these calls together over the next couple of weeks as well, I want to start to give you more tools in your tool belt to go into these conversations with confidence, to asking the right questions, knowing how to lead the conversation, knowing that you're taking them somewhere and you're going to be giving them an experience. Okay. So we do this. Okay. We do this by adding value. I know some of you guys said relatability, connection, things like that, your story, all that is great. So we do this in our content to create engagement, start conversations by adding value. But I think here's the most important distinction in adding value, is a lot of people think adding value is just an inspirational quote, something motivational, here's something that I read in a book, and that's not bad or wrong, but I want to mature you. I want to advance you. I want to elevate the way that you do what you do, because everybody's doing that. And if everybody's doing that, then what's going to help you stand out? It's not going to just be adding value is a quote or something that I pulled from whatever. You want to go deeper with that. So kind of the example that Alex was bringing up about money, and I forget exactly what you said, but putting your own experience into it. So what it is, adding value, it is bringing up a problem. Okay, it is bringing up your problems, the impact, the effects of the problem that maybe you experience because of the reason why you want to make that post about XYZ. Okay, you're bringing up your own problem, you're bringing up your own challenge that you are going through, or that you had an experience that you've gone through. Okay, and you're making it relatable. Okay, somebody said relatability. You're making it relatable to your audience. So we already know, hopefully everybody already has their IHELP statement. If you are not connected to your IHELP statement, either one of two things, you got to go back and refine it. Okay, reach out, hey, I need some help with my IHELP statement. Or number two, maybe it is the right IHELP statement, but you aren't seeing it every single day. I know mine like that because I see it every day. Okay, so we need to like, this is your business statement. Like, this is how you help people. This is your mission. This is why you're here. This is where you're going. So like, we don't want it to just be, out of sight, out of mind. We want to have it in front of us. So you're bringing up your own experience. You're bringing up some challenges or problems or the effects of that problem in the post that you're making. Okay, because what you're doing is now you're making it relatable to the person, your specific person that you can help. Okay, and they can relate to you. Now, I want to ask you guys, when you think about your content right now, when you think about your content, just type in the chat. Is no right or wrong. This is just to kind of get you to be open, because I was listening to somebody. This is actually really powerful. So I was listening to somebody the other day, and he made a post, and he was like, when he talks to prospects and things like that, he was like, my first approach is to allow someone the opportunity to gain clarity on the truth behind their beliefs. This was so powerful. He said, my first approach is to allow someone the opportunity to gain clarity on the truth behind their beliefs. So we go through life with these limiting beliefs about ourselves, but we don't even recognize the validity of that truth until we have somebody like ourselves who actually understand the journey that we're on, and that beliefs don't have to be ours. We don't have to become the feeling. We don't have to become the thought. And we are able to ask purposeful questions that allow the other person to become aware and acknowledge, oh, that belief actually isn't even real. Where did I even come up with that belief? Because sometimes if you have stuff in your head, it can be the biggest, baddest thing, the thing that we're worried and scared about and fearful of up here. But as soon as we say it out loud in front of people, as soon as we, put it on paper and we let go of it, we release it from ourselves, it is no longer this big, bad, fearful thing. It's a crazy psychological thing, and I think you guys have seen that before. But he said that I allow them the opportunity to gain clarity on the truth behind their belief. And this was the other part of it. He said it's not always about telling them what they need to hear. It's about allowing them to see what is really the truth. I read that and I was like, oh my goodness, that is actually really powerful, because so many times, and I know I'm guilty of this too, maybe you've got yourself in certain situations as well, but so many times we will be in conversations or we'll be talking to people or whatever, and we feel the need that we need to tell them what we think they need to hear, because it's going to help them see things from a different lens, or whatever. But he said it's not always about telling them what they need to hear, it's about allowing them to see what is really the truth. And he went on to keep talking, and he gave the example of, like, this person was saying, I won't go into the whole example, but I just want to say this real quick because it was really powerful. This girl was saying, no guy could ever handle me, whatever she said, whatever the context was. And so he was like, in this example, I would show, to respond to her, I would show some empathy, and then ask with loving energy, do you really believe no guy in the world can handle you? And what that was just one question. But with that question, you challenge their beliefs. So I know I'm going on a tangent here, and you guys probably have already, you know, started to think about what you think people think about in your content, what comes to mind. But I wanted to make this point because it's not, when I ask to do these things, it's not to just put people on the spot, or, if you're feeling some type of way or like whatever. It's so that we can start to uncover some of these truths, and we can do that by challenging them, challenging the beliefs. Do I really believe that? Or, is this something that I've just believed for so long that it's become my truth? Okay. So, okay. What do we've got so far? Crystal said when somebody comes to her page, you inspire others. Okay. They're thinking, oh, wow, she inspires others. Okay. I like that. That's awesome. Who else? When you think about your content, people come to your page. Is that what the question I said? When you think about your content, what comes to mind? I think that's the question I asked. Something like that. When you think about your content, what comes to mind? What are people probably thinking? You're empowering them. Okay, awesome. Anybody else? Encouraging to think. Alex says encouraging to think. Yeah. Think about this for yourself, because what you think about whatever you're doing says probably even more volumes than what other people are thinking, because most people aren't even thinking about us. We're thinking about all those things 10 times more than what's actually happening. So you should have a clear, not even a clear idea, you should have a clear foundation of, like, what your content is doing, the type of value that you're bringing to the table, and the type of impact that you're making through your content. When somebody comes to your page, what are they thinking? What comes to mind first? Okay. And the other question is maybe right now it's not what you want it to be, but you could get to a point and ask yourself, well, what do you want them to think? Maybe right now they go to your page and you're not really building trust, or people aren't, maybe they are inspired, but you're not as consistent as you could be. So there's a lack of trust there. People associate consistency with trust. It's weird, but when you're consistent, the people are more likely to trust you because you're showing up, you're here. I do this all the time when I go to somebody's page. The first thing that I do is I don't actually read their bio. The first thing that I notice that I do is I see if they have stories. If they don't have stories on their page, one of the number one things, you guys can type in the chat too of what you maybe look at, but one of the number one things I do is I look at if they have any stories that I can watch. And number two is I go to their first picture. Some of them are pinned, so I'll go to the most recent first picture that's not pinned, and I look at the date of when they posted. And if it's like recent, I'm talking like within the last 24 hours, Psychologically, and they have a story, like they have stories and they look to be active, I'm psychologically already building trust with him. And I haven't even read any piece of content. I haven't even read anything that they've put out yet. But the fact that they have stories up, it shows that they're present. It shows that they're, relevant. It shows that they're consistent because I see, oh, you just posted something over the last 24 hours. And so these are just psychological things that you can start to think about. And then the other aspect of this, as people start to actually go to your page, because maybe they find you off of a reel that they connected with, but if they go to your page and that reel has nothing to do with anything else that you've done, like why, what would be the reason why? What's the significance as to why they would want to continue to follow you? Like actually press that follow button. So let me get into it. So some of you guys already wrote this. The number one goal. So the purpose of the content is to create engagement and start conversations. The number one goal in your content is to be relatable. Okay. So when I think about posting, my goal in my post is I want to be relatable. How do I be relatable? I'm adding value. What is value? It's not just here's a motivational quote. It's bringing up the problem. Okay, it's sharing a problem. It's sharing an experience that you've gone through. I want you guys to think about when you scroll on Instagram, have you noticed what posts you stop and just you're watching? Like the posts that get your attention to watch versus the ones that you keep scrolling by? When you scroll on Instagram, when you're on Facebook or like whatever it is, have you guys started to notice? We all do it. A lot. We all do it. Have you noticed what posts stop you and get your attention to watch versus the ones that you keep scrolling by? I've noticed for me, feel free to type in the chat, but I noticed for me, just being very aware and very mindful, the ones that have original content, they have a story, they have some, the ones that are standing out, those are the ones where they are speaking on a specific problem. They're talking about the effects or the impacts of whatever problem that they're touching on. And I was talking to Alex, I was like, a lot of the videos that get great engagement and probably a lot of conversation starters are the videos that are always different. Like the trending videos, like the ones that I did them all last year. I was doing like all the trending ones except the dancing one. I was doing a lot of the trending ones because that was what was popular. That was what was going to get people's attention. And I'm not here to like follow those types of trends. But what I am saying is the thing that's going back to the infinite game, the thing that's going to allow you to play the infinite game and stand out and stand strong and gain the attention from the audience that you are, that you're speaking to isn't going to be, okay, what's the next best trending, sound or song or dance or, voiceover or whatever. That's not the infinite game. That's like in trading. Mike Neverett talks about the infinite game all the time. And that's risk to reward. That's following your trading plan. That's actually having trade management, risk management. The infinite game here is being able to share like value through your problems. So your problems are composed within the value creation that you're putting out in your content. If you can provide an experience, and maybe not every post that you put out gives like this long drawn out detailed story and a problem that you experience, but it could be something relatable to yourself because that's what is unique. That is what is original. That is what is different versus what everybody else is doing. I see the same content being, copied and pasted from everybody else that's online. It's like, this is not keeping my attention. This is not keeping my attention. So start to like, when you scroll, start to just be really mindful of like, what are you actually watching that's keeping your attention versus the things that are not. And I know like this is a separate topic, but even like we could pull from this is like just, data and evidence of like what works. I know like we're not like our page goal isn't to put out videos of like food, but if like you look at people that post food recipes or real estate and they're always showing different homes, I'll sit and I'll watch those, especially if they're catchy, right? Like the timing of the video. I will watch those because they're different if you're like into that. So anyways, that was just an example. I just wanted to give you guys that, but start to be mindful when you're scrolling, what really stands out to you versus what are you scrolling past. So, okay. So we build trust. The number one goal in your content is to be relatable and build trust. And it goes back to step number one that we talked about. You do that through the purpose of your content. Okay. You're adding value. You're speaking on a specific problem. You create trust through the problems that you touch on, the problems that you speak on. You're vulnerable. How do you get someone else to open up with you? You have to open up first. So what maybe can you share in this next post that you're about to put out that can build trust? Okay, that you can touch on an experience that you've gone through. And here's the other thing too, these experiences, they don't need to all be negative. And when I say problems, you don't need to go down this rabbit hole of like, you know, woe is me, yada, 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 whatever. But you can touch briefly on that challenge itself, and what the lesson was. The only thing is when we only highlight our successes, when we only highlight, you know, how great things are in our life, which by the way is BS. I'll call BS on everybody in this world who posts on social media and makes their life, you know, seem like it's perfect and they have no problems. People can't relate to that. People can relate to the struggles. People can relate to the fact that you make mistakes. People can relate to your flaws. So speak on it. If you want people to open up to you, you want to have those conversations, speak on them. I did a live on Wednesday this past week, and I haven't had people respond to me for my content in a hot minute, but just being transparent. On Wednesday, I had 3 people message me from the live that I did on my Facebook. And I was a little open in there about some things that I had gone through, that I was going through. So it wasn't just, here's this quote that I learned, you know, this is what I read from this book, this is what, you know, I pulled from this video. I was actually sharing experiences, and the people that were commenting and like actually sending me a message on Messenger, because that's what we want. That's the purpose of the content, is we want that as an outcome. We want people to start conversations with us or comment, and we start a conversation with them. The cool part was they just sent me a direct message, and they were highlighting the specific thing that I talked about in my actual video, in my live, and now we're having a conversation, and I'm gonna screenshot it to you guys after the call. But one of them is now asking me how I empower whatever my bio is women, like whatever I said. They're asking me what I do based on the conversation that we're already having. So that is like the streamline, like goal and direction of why we post, why we post in the first place. So we build trust and we build value. We implement value when we exchange conversations around problems. I think if you take anything away from this call, I'm not showing you how to have the conversation. This is what to say. This is how to start. I'm not doing that, at least not right now or yet, because that's not what's going to help you. I don't know if you're thinking that way of like, man, well, just show me like what to say on the conversations. That's going to do you no good, because it's one, transactional. I'm telling you what to say. I want you to think about this in a way that's empowering. If you bring on a team and you are just telling them what to do all the time, you're never going to allow them to think for themselves. I'm trying to, on these calls right now, I'm trying to give you a perspective that empowers you to think for yourself. Think independently from the limiting beliefs that you have, from the thoughts and the narrative that have been keeping you back, that have been holding you back. I'm trying to show you how to think about this in the right way instead of just telling you what to say. Because in the long run, in the infinite game, that's going to allow you to prosper. That's going to allow you to actually become the person that you want to be. So we build trust, value, all those things, connection, when we exchange conversations around problems. So what we're doing in our actual conversations, we can actually bring to light in our posts, in our content. And if you think about, just look at some of the conversations that you're having with people, whether they're on the team or not. And I do this whenever I have a conversation with somebody and there's a problem or a red light story or a limiting belief that comes up or an excuse, I write it down and I'm like, how am I going to be able, like, I'm thinking about how I can make content around this, because that is a problem. That is a challenge that my ideal person is going through. How can I make this into a piece of content and maybe bring my own experience, or anonymously bring, the individual I'm talking to, their experience into my piece of content that is relatable to the people that I know I can help. So like I want you to start to think this way, because if you keep thinking the same way that you've always been thinking, are you gonna put out content? Are you actually gonna like make posts that are, problem based, and it's not just a motivational quote, it actually involves your experience? Are you actually going to create an impact? Like if you keep thinking the same way that you are, what are your results going to look like in the next 6 months, end of the year? Okay. So what is the main problem when you post on social media? What is the main problem of the video? So, and maybe not every video is going to be problem based, or every post is going to be problem based. Maybe you might have a post that's regarding your personal transformation. Maybe it's not always going to be about how I am has solved a problem for you in your life. Maybe some of the posts that you make is going to be about your personal transformation. I notice a lot of my posts are personal transformation related. Okay, so maybe it's about that. Maybe it's about your values. Maybe it's about, the values that matter to you in your life. And I can tell you right now, the people that you're going to do business with, the people that are going to want to partner up with you, that are going to want to follow you, that are going to want you to be their trusted advisor, they're going to have very similar, if not the same values as you. But you're never going to attract those people if you don't speak about the values that you care about, that are important to you, that are leading your life in your content. So some of your content, some of your posts can be based around your values. And we will get into this more as the weeks come. And also as you guys start to bring more examples to the table. So next week's call, when we show up in the very beginning, I'm going to do it before. I don't know. You guys tell me. I can do it on the recording. I can do it before. But in the beginning, we're going to go over a piece of content or a conversation. So get into the mindset of like, I'm going to bring something to the table. I'm going to bring something to the table. With our accountability groups that we have every week, I always have been having something in my back pocket to bring to the table as an example. Not always have they shared it, but I'm always ready. And if you want to be that leader that's always ready, like it's how you do anything is how you do everything. You are constantly in that mindset. Okay. So what is the main problem? What is maybe the impact of that problem? What direction can you lead this content that you're putting out? I'm speaking on content because content leads to conversations. Content leads to conversations. The content that you're putting out, the problem that you're speaking on, the impact of that problem and the feeling that you are enhancing in that piece of content. That feeling is what's relatable to the other person. It's not just the problem itself. It's digging into, well, how did you feel about that problem? I made a post the other day and I talked about how I was upset. This was like heat of the moment, on the spot. Maybe I shouldn't have made the video right away, but I was like, I have everything I need to say right now because of how I was feeling. But I touched on the feelings. People can relate to the feelings. So touch on that when you make your content. So the last couple things that I'll just share with you guys, and we'll wrap up this call. Don't sell. I don't think that we really do this, but sometimes I've seen that we do, and we don't even maybe notice it. But the number one thing that Bob talks about in a lot of his stuff is don't sell in your content. Don't sell in like what you're doing. Don't try to promote everything that you post, or everything in your post. Don't try to, have it be promotional. Don't ask people to buy. Don't ask people to take a look. Don't ask people to do that. Delay. He's saying delay the ask. Delay the ask, because what you do when you delay the ask, none of my posts have anything about I'm trying to sell you. Like I've looked back on my post and I was like, you don't try to sell in your post. What my problem is, and I'm just being vulnerable with you guys, my problem in my content has been not being very clear on the problem that I'm trying to convey in my piece of content and the feeling, and actually giving them some sort of call to action. And a call to action is not, hey, check out my link. Hey, here's this call tonight. It has nothing to do with any of that. A call to action is supposed to facilitate the next conversation. It's supposed to yield a conversation starter. So you ask a question that could start a conversation. I'm trying to think of a good example right now. Maybe I'll send something in the chat after this, but at the end of the post, not every post, but a lot of posts, you want to ask a question that can basically create a connection where you relate to it, they relate to it, and you guys can build some sort of trust connection right there because of just a question that you ask based around the content that you just made, the problem that you were speaking on. Have you ever experienced this before? You could even say that. What type of experience have you had when it comes to XYZ? Okay. So what you're doing is when you delay the ask and you don't try to sell in your content and you just make it about value creation, connecting around people's problems, you're able to build trust. And what you're doing here is you're being a little vulnerable. And as I said in the beginning, when you open up and you're a little vulnerable, it opens the table for other people to also open up and be a little vulnerable. I've noticed in rooms and environments and things like that of that nature, when it is not moving in the direction that I want it to move, if maybe there's awkward energy or people just aren't free or comfortable to be themselves, it's because I am still not opening up like I could be, or I'm not making people feel comfortable to be themselves. And I think that's probably one of the greatest things that you can do is make people feel comfortable in their own skin when they're around you. And you can do that through your content. So what you're doing is you're creating a safe space for people through your content, through the posts that you make. You're making them feel connected to you, and that's how they start to pay attention. They look forward to the things that you're putting out. They look forward to, seeing you do whatever you're doing because you make them feel heard. You make them feel like they're not alone in their problems because you're now talking about it. You're now sharing your experience. You're now going through and speaking up about the things that you're going through in your life or like whatever. So what happens is last thing is you make people feel safe. Okay, people don't feel alone in their problems. They're not by themselves. Like there's actually other people that feel and think this way, just like me. Okay, they find value in you, which is one of the number one things that you can do on social media is become a person of value. And you do that by relating and connecting and speaking on the problems that you can solve that are related to that ideal person. Because what they're doing when they find you valuable, okay, when people find you valuable, they relate to your problems. Okay. When people find you valuable, it's because they are able to relate to you and your problems, your challenges, the things that you go through. Okay. They're able to connect with you through those commonalities. And then the last thing, when you're able to delay the ask, when you're able to show up in this transformational way, is you become that trusted advisor for them. You become that person that they believe can take them where they want to go. They believe that you can solve the problems that they have. They believe that you can give them an experience that's going to transform their life. And that is really the last thing that I'll wrap up here is that's really the power of what we can do here. It's rooted in our experience. And this doesn't really have anything to do with like putting out content. I mean, it can because of what you're doing as you, not just one post, but as you post consistently. What you're doing is you're giving people an experience. Okay. In network marketing, that is the difference between just somebody that works for a company and us. Like we are that trusted advisor. When people get started with you, you have the opportunity to give them an experience, and we want to give them a transformational experience. So I want you to ponder this question. I want you leaving this call, I want you to really like sit with yourself and ask, when someone gets started with me, what is the experience that I'm giving them? Okay. When someone gets started with me, what is the experience that I'm giving them? Okay. What does that look like? And I really want you to separate yourself for a moment, because what we do sometimes is we realize so much on the platform, which we should be edifying the academy. That is what they paid for. But I want you to separate yourself for just a moment from the academy, and not think about the experience that they're going to go through with the actual like I am academy, but what is it that they're going to experience working with you? What value do you bring to the table with that person, with your new team member? Okay. With your new customer? What does that look like? So that's really the call, guys. I wanted to just give you guys an opportunity to get a different look, an insider look to selling in your convos. We didn't really go into like the specifics of the conversation, but what it means to sell in a transformational way through our content. What does that look like? And I didn't give you a step by step of this is what you do, this is blah blah blah. Like that's not the purpose of like why I'm up here doing these calls. If you have specific questions about things, you need help when it comes to, hey, like I'm not really sure where to take this, or what's your what's your guidance here? Reach out and ask. I didn't get to, this level of understanding because I kept my mouth shut. Like, I am not afraid to get out there and ask questions. And I was curious. So if you need help, reach out, ask. But the whole purpose of this call today was to give you a better understanding of what it means to start conversations. What does that look like? And walking you through as you start to look at your content and your social media, looking at it differently, looking at it from a place that you can actually empower people. But like, what does it mean to empower people? You're talking about some problems. You're talking about challenges that you've experienced. It's not just reciting the same stuff that everybody else is doing, copying what you've seen here. There's areas where you should copy and steal, and that's important, but there's also areas where you need to bring your uniqueness. And it is what it is, and it's cliche, but the giftings that God has given you, and the challenges that he's allowed you to go through, how have they shaped you? What did you learn from that? What mistakes have you made? What did how did your awareness change because you decided to start learning a new skill set, because you were sick and tired of being limited by one income stream, because you were dissatisfied at your job? Like, start talking about these things in your content, really express the feeling that you had, and give a quick, solution call to action by bringing people an opportunity to connect with you. Ask a question related to that. So I'm going to stop the recording real quick because I do have one question for you guys.